So I think we're ready to get started here, folks. Thanks for everybody for tearing themselves away from March Madness and from St. Patrick's Day festivities and all that kind of stuff to join us today. I think as almost everyone on the webinar should be aware by now, March is Realtor.com month at Baird Warner because we've started a new partnership with Realtor.com to make it easier to make your profiles, your listings, and your recommendations stand out. And really, I like to emphasize the easier part because as an agent, there's nothing you need to do. We're using the data that's already in our systems, in your agent-branded web page or in testimonial tree. Or in our photo VHT system to just make things look a little better. So it really captures what we say on our billboards. Every Friday, I've been doing these interviews with VIPs. Today, we've got Roger Stewart, Training and Communication Manager from Realtor.com. He's going to help us talk a little bit more about this week's theme, making our profiles and listings stand out, really putting our best foot forward on Realtor.com. Because as I've been saying over and over this week, it's not your online presence is not just about looking good on the places where you like to look good. It's about looking good everywhere, and we want to make sure that all of Realtor.com's 53 million users can find the right information and both about our agents and our listings when they do use Realtor.com. And so I think the best way to start this interview off is just to dive in a little bit. I'm going to ask Roger to introduce himself a little bit, tell us how long he's been at Realtor.com and a little bit about what it's like to be there, just so that we can get a sense of who he is. So go ahead, Roger, whenever you want to get started.
Well, thank you, first of all. As you mentioned, I work with Realtor.com. I'm a national trainer and speaker, so I do a lot of different tech events, and as well as a lot of field training and office training with many of our broker partners out there. I've been with Realtor.com for about 6 years. I'm from Arizona, so we're enjoying a very, very early spring this year. I think we're supposed to hit 95 today. It's a little too early for that. But I've been in and around the industry for probably about 15 years now, prior to coming on with Realtor.com. For the last 6 years I've been here. Prior to that I was with Arizona Regional MLS as a trainer as well for about 4.5 years. I'm also a full-time investor in the Arizona market, or at least I have been, not quite doing full-time right now because the market's still kind of shifting a little bit. But it's given me lots of opportunity to work with a lot of different agents in different capacities and do quite a bit of training, and I've just been doing a whole bunch of it for the last couple of years.
Great. I'd like to sort of highlight one little thing that's just been a theme of one of the things that I've been saying to agents here, and that is that, like, you're a real estate guy, it sounds like, not a tech guy, right?
Actually, a little bit of both. I was in IT for about 15 years, so I do have that background, but probably about 2001, 2002, I moved into real estate pretty much full-time and been doing it ever since. So I've had the luxury of seeing things from both sides.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, then we may try and stump you with some questions later. But that's great. So I know you're biased, but I always really like to start these things with why. I think many of the folks who are listening in today may have heard me say it, but I think it's nice to hear it from the horse's mouth. Can you tell us why you think it's important to have a Realtor.com profile among all the other stuff that they've got to be managing on the internet?
Well, it goes to visibility. The main thing is, especially now with the traveling that I'm doing, I hear pretty much in every market very similar issues out there right now, which is inventory. There just isn't any. So agents are going through, they're extremely competitive on trying to get the listings, the few listings that are available. And so making sure that when the consumers are out there looking for you, they get to you first, or you present the best the best image first to hopefully get them to engage with you before your competitor. Also giving you some tools to, at least when you go in front of that prospect and they're sitting there saying, well, why should I sign with you versus the guy across the street? Having some of the extra tools and marketing tools to be able to at least drive some of that helps kind of keep that pipeline full, helps trying to keep those clients with you rather than the people across the street, which is a big part of, as I go through in the training that I do and a lot of the tech events that I do, a lot of my talks are about marketing and making sure that not just on Realtor.com, but driving that visibility through all different channels. And so Realtor.com is a fairly large piece of that puzzle, and because of some of the things that we've been doing along with NAR, a lot of state associations, with our MLS partners, we have kind of a synergy within this group that nobody else has. And when you take that and start putting that into the marketing tools we have available, and most of them are free tools that a lot of agents don't realize, and then you add that to your profile as well as Advantage Pro, which you guys have, it becomes a very powerful marketing tool, not only for your clients' properties, but to raise your visibility, and not just on Realtor.com, but out in the search engine world. We call it Google Juice, things that help drive your Google Juice. So when people are just doing their searches, you come to the top of the list, and that's a big part of it. All kind of ties together.
Yeah, I think everyone has heard me say similar things. I think the Google Juice is an interesting way to phrase that piece, but it absolutely is important to think about not just how you look on one of these profiles, but how they interact and how your social media links into them and that. But as long as we're talking about visibility, I think I always get a lot of questions about how the agent activity ranking works, around how the Find a Realtor page, because at the end of the day, we'd all like to be number one. I'd like, Baird Warner agents to be 1 through 10, no matter which way you searched. But could you just kind of explain what those different rankings or ratings are, and sort of how they're sorted?
Sure. Well, a couple of different things to kind of tie all this together, and we're talking about, once they land on the Realtor.com or Find a Realtor page, the first thing that the consumer sees when they're searching, if you've ever gone out there and done a search for, let's say, agents in the Chicago area or whatever city or suburb you serve, the first thing you see as far as the way the agents are listed is first by activity. Now, the reason we did it that way is because, I'm not sure if everyone is aware or not, but we have a direct connection with every MLS in the country. So all listings are fed directly to us through a feed, and we update our listing information every 10 to 15 minutes. We're the only public-facing real estate portal that has that. A lot of our competitors are still trying to get there, but they're not there yet. And because of that, we know we have the most up-to-date current information. Every time an agent makes a change in the MLS, we pick that up and it's available to the consumer 10 to 15 minutes later. So on that landing page, the initial page, we wanted to try and keep it as random as possible. So the easiest way for us to do that is based on activity, because even if an agent is going in there changing a listing to try and stay on that page, unless they have enough time to sit there and do it every 10 to 15 minutes, which means they're not doing a lot of real estate anyway, it's almost impossible to do that. Now, we also know, however, that from a user perspective, a very high number of people that actually hit that site and are searching for realtors don't leave it set on the activity order. First thing they do is they go to the top of the page and they change the sort order. And typically there's two things that they'll change it to: highest rated or most recommendations. Now, these are two areas that you do have control over, and I would bet if you went into your respective cities and did a search for agents and flipped it over to those rankings, you'd be amazed at how few recommendations or ratings it actually takes to be on the first page. Now, there's an old joke that has been around for years, and that is, where's the best place to hide a dead body? Page 3 of Google search results, because nobody ever goes there. That's absolutely true. You want to be on the first, maybe second page. And that can be done very easily by driving ratings, which I know you guys are integrating into your rating system, which will help drive your ratings very quickly. The second area is recommendations, and there's a little bit of a difference between the two. The ratings are a 5-star rating system, very much like Yelp or Amazon.com has the 5-star ratings at the bottom. And those ratings have to go through the rating process. They are transaction-based, so they can only be completed by a customer, either buyer or seller side, but they have to be completed by a customer you've closed a deal with. They're the only ones that can do ratings. Now, you can go back and request ratings from previous customers up to 10 years in the past. So if you have a few customers you haven't gone back and asked for ratings from, now would be a really good time to do that, because that's going to help you pop up on that first page or the second page. And again, it doesn't take a lot. Now, recommendations are a little different. Recommendations you can get from anyone. And the recommendations page, you can, if you have ratings or reviews or things you've gotten in the past, or maybe if you have a profile on a different website that you've gotten ratings or reviews on, you can copy and paste those into the recommendations area to help bolster your recommendations. You can also get recommendations from other agents you've closed deals with. You can get them from friends and family members. You can get them literally from anybody. I recommend the best way to do this and to build this area is go talk to a lot of the people on your team that you work with, your mortgage brokers, your title companies, plumbers, drywallers, handymen, pool people, yard people, all the people out there that you work with that help you with your homes. These are people that want you to bring them business, and so if you can get more business by them providing recommendations to you, then by default they're going to get more business. So it's a win-win for both of you. But it's also a win for the consumer because, number one, it brings you up higher in the ratings so they see your profile first. Number two, so many agents don't spend the time to do it. So when the consumer's out there looking around at different profiles and different reviews on agents, they have the typical, great agent to work with, closed my deal, got me a great price, the basic things that kind of everybody has. But when you come to one that has all these recommendations from all these different things, a lot of consumers out there still, if they haven't worked with a realtor, they don't understand oftentimes how far you reach out into the community. They still see a lot of realtors as paper pushers, basically taking care of listings and contracts, and that's it. So having that extra information, if somebody wants to list their house, they start looking through this and say, oh, well, they know somebody that can work on drywall or a plumber or an electrician. All the people that I know I might need for my house, now I don't have to go out there and find them. So it's also a win-win for that consumer because you're kind of painting a picture for them that a lot of consumers don't realize. So that's also a big part of it.
Right.
So those are the ways you kind of use. What's that?
Here's how strong my team is.
Exactly. And that you have a team, because a lot of consumers don't realize that. So it's just another great way to increase your visibility, but also give them more content that they can grab onto when they get there.
I like that tip a lot, and I'm going to take just half a second to plug that we are taking all of our agents' testimonials, 4- and 5-star testimonials from your agent-branded page through our testimonial tree program, and we will be uploading those at the end of March to Realtor.com. So all of our agents, without even having to do a thing, are going to come up a lot higher in the recommendation sorted search starting by the end
actually,
of
that'll be the rated. That'll be the highest rated because testimonial tree feeds our ratings.
Okay, great.
So the recommendations are ones you can get from anybody. The rated ones are coming through your testimonial tree to boost your ratings level. So it's going to help in both.
Great. And I think, the reviews are sort of a favorite topic of mine. I think everyone in Baird Warner knows that I've been talking about them a lot. But can you just talk a little bit about how that plays into the activity ranking? Because using reviews, getting reviews and rating and recommendations plays a role in that activity as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And like I was saying, essentially once people get there, and I think agents would also be amazed at how many people are actually doing their searches on Realtor.com now. The visibility of the Find a Realtor system itself has, over the last year, gained a ton of traction and visibility. And once they arrive on that page, as I mentioned, they see it sorted by activity, but the first thing that most consumers do is they change it to ratings and reviews or highest rated or most recommendations, both things that the agent can control. And again, if you go out and start looking at some of your competition out there as you're setting this up, go take a look at what you're up against, and you'll probably realize very quickly it's not going to take an awful lot to boost your recommendations or your reviews to a point where you're going to land on that first page to increase that visibility. And that's, again, the most important thing. We are going to see another bump on the site. Last year, we averaged 1 million searches a month on Realtor.com for a realtor. That was right up until NAR started a program where they have their, I don't know if you've seen them, the commercials with Phil Dunphy, that's their new spokesperson. Did a phenomenal job for them last year. It's, I think, one of the best pairings that they could have possibly found. They started a program with those commercials called Get Realtor, and they tied that to a digital marketing campaign on the internet where you saw a lot of the commercials, but not only that, but Get Realtor banners where you can click on those. When you click on those, that was driving additional traffic to the Find a Realtor page. That took our traffic from 1 million searches a month to 1 million searches a week. It quadrupled the traffic on the site. And NAR is getting ready. They're filming right now, and they're getting ready to relaunch another campaign with Phil Dunphy over the next month or so. So we're going to see more of those and see more traffic. So now you're talking 4 million searches a month on that site specifically for a realtor. Those numbers are huge. But then you go and look at the fact that that is only 30% of our overall traffic on the site. 70% of it comes from organic searches from places like Google and Yahoo and other search engines. So when you start looking at those kind of numbers, there's a lot of people out there looking for a realtor, and all those different sources, we spend a lot of time and energy making sure that when somebody does say, looking for a realtor in Chicago, or John Smith Realtor, you plug any of those things in Google, and I can almost guarantee you in the first top couple slots, you're going to see realtors listed, and you're going to see their Find a Realtor profile on Realtor.com, because we make sure that our Google juice is doing what it's supposed to make sure that you're at the top of the list there. You just have to make sure that when they click on it, there's something on the other end for them to see. So that's kind of where that visibility comes in. It's not just about what's happening specifically on Realtor.com, but it's also all the searches that are coming in from these other sources, such as Google, which is where a majority of our searches come from.
Right. No, I think that's great to hear, and that underscores something that I think people saw in my webinar last week about how you guys have really, there's been a question about why now for us to partner with Realtor.com, and I think that evidence around the Phil Dunphy campaign is part of what we've seen. We've really seen that you guys have come on strong in the last 2 to 3 years, almost doubling your audience view and things like that. So I think that goes a long way to answer the question of why Realtor.com is because you're still very relevant with millions of consumers that are making you part of their search. So you clearly do a lot of training. I can hear that in the way you're talking. But just sort of keeping in mind our new partnership, where they don't have to really keep the demographic data updated in their profile anymore. What are the top 3 things that they can do to make their profile stand out when someone does find them in one of these searches, or whether it's because of the Google juice working or whatever it is? What can they do to make their profile really look awesome?
Well, I would say first and foremost are the photos. Everybody wants photos. And so if you haven't been to your profile lately, I would encourage you to go out and take a look at it, see what the consumer sees. There's a primary photo, your main profile photo sits down in the corner. Then you have a large background photo. It's very Facebook-esque. And so you want to make sure that you have a really nice photo that is going to evoke an emotional response. And this is probably the most key thing of your profile, believe it or not, because that's how we're all driven. This is what I mean when I say we're doing everything we can to drive those consumers there. You have to make sure when they get there, you give them something they want. And when it really comes down to it, the consumer has one question, really, and that's, what can you do for me? That's the only question. Now, the answers may be different based on the consumer, but really that's the question they have. And so when they get to your profile, you have to remember, as you're creating your profile, you have to kind of put yourself in that frame of mind as a consumer when they're asking, what can you do for me, and why should I contact you? You want to evoke an emotional response, because that's what's going to get them to click the button to contact and reach out to connect with you. And so the first thing you want to do is have a great photo. Now, I'm going to apologize right now because brokers hate it when I say this, but at this point, from a consumer perspective, when you're trying to decide what to use for that background photo, the consumer at that point doesn't care what the logo looks like. They don't care what the front of the building looks like. They don't care what the Chicago skyline looks like. If they're looking for a realtor there, they've already decided for whatever reasons in their life they need to buy a house there. They're not looking for skylines. They're not looking necessarily for brokers. They're looking for an individual that they can work with to help them make the biggest buy of their lifetime, or at least up to this point, until they buy their next house. So you really want to make sure that you give them something to grab onto. I always recommend, obviously, homes is where you want to start. And we all know in this industry, there's one thing that sells homes better than anything else. And what would that be? Okay, that was for you, Ellis.
Oh, I was like,
what is the one thing that will sell a house faster than anything else?
Right now, just being on the market. But are you looking for price or location?
But as far as visuals on a property, if you're gonna show somebody a house, what usually it's two things that sell a house.
Right. Location and curb appeal, right?
Nope, kitchens and bathrooms.
Oh,
period. End of story.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where it's located. If the kitchens and bathrooms aren't up to standard for that buyer, forget it. It's not going to happen. So obviously, I wouldn't suggest putting bathrooms as one of your background photos, but kitchens do it. A lot of agents you see, and again, this goes back to going out and checking what your competition is doing. When you go out and look at some of that stuff, there's all kinds of stuff out there, and a lot of it isn't pertaining to the house. It's more about what the agent wants to show rather than what the consumer wants to see. So you have to keep that in mind as you're going out there and creating that. So again, go out and look at your competition, seeing look at what they're doing. You'll see oftentimes I see very little interior shots as background photos, very few, and even fewer kitchens. So my recommendation always is go get a beautiful kitchen shot somewhere and put that as your background, because what you want is you want that consumer to hit the site, go, oh my God, that's a beautiful kitchen. That's the kind of house I want. Can this agent help me find that? Evoke that emotional response. That's first and foremost the biggest thing. Second of all, is your bio, your specializations, and areas served. Now, some of these maybe, I don't know if you guys are taking care of that section or not, but I would recommend any agent go in and bolster that area, because the specializations and areas served are actually built-in tags so that Google picks up on those as well. And so in the specializations area, I wouldn't just put in, I work with buyers, I work with sellers, I work with luxury homes. Every agent puts that in. That's not going to help you stand out. What you want to do is go and put in every other thing you can think of that a consumer would search with. I want a golf course lot. I want waterfront property. I want water view. I want lake view. If there are special neighborhoods in the area that are in very high demand that you know people are searching for, put them by name under specializations. It's a list, and we already know people really don't read it. It is really more for Google. And then under areas served, you're putting the zip codes. Again, same thing. A lot of agents don't take the time to do either of these two things. But if I go out to Google and I say I'm looking for a realtor in Chicago that deals with golf course lots, investors, and I'm looking for a corner lot on a waterfront. If you have those things in your specializations, and most other agents in there don't, you're going to be one of the first people that pops up in a Google search to drive them to your profile. So these, again, are areas, and if you reiterate some of those terms in your bio about areas that you serve or specializations, it starts to tie it all together, and again, adds relevance to the Google search side, which again is where 70% of our traffic is coming from. And then third and final is social media. Now, if you don't do social media, then don't worry about it. However, if you do, it's another fantastic way to boost what's the content of your profile, as well as create a tremendous amount of Google juice. Because you have an option on your page. If you blog, all you have to do is copy and paste on your profile page your blog address. It will automatically, from that point forward, all of your blogs, every time you blog, will be duplicated on your Realtor.com profile. Now you've got double the exposure, and you're on a national portal. Google picks up on that. You can also connect your Facebook business page as well as your Facebook, or excuse me, your Twitter business account. And in those instances, the information flows both directions. If you put out tweets that are business tweets, they'll flow through to your profile page in the appropriate section. When you post anything to Facebook, in your Facebook business page, that will flow through and duplicate on your profile, again giving you more exposure and completing the circle. And then in the inverse, you get, every time you have a new listing, which comes from the MLS automatically, you sell a listing, you get a recommendation, you get a review, the profile will automatically push those out as content for both your Twitter account and your Facebook business page. So it's a flow of information that happens back and forth. You set it up once, it's on autopilot after that. And again, now you've got all these different resources swirling around your name in real estate. Google sees all of that, and again, it just continues to boost your visibility. And again, these are resources that are built in that most agents don't know about or are using.
Right, built in and free and autopilot is like, it's like the holy trinity for most of our agents. I think it's safe to say it's a set it and forget it kind of option. I also just want to go back real quick to the bio specializations and areas served, just to make sure that everyone from Baird Warner knows what we're doing. We are filling out your areas served as part of this upload, but we can only use the 5 zip codes where you did the most business over the last 2 years. The data boys had to have something to pull those zip codes up for every agent. So I'm encouraging everyone to go in and fine-tune those so that they really match what you're doing. And then while we will be updating the bios as part of our new data feed, the specializations are not one, because we have a different set of specializations and we word them a little differently, and because those are treated like keywords, that is something that the agents will still have to do. So that's one where we couldn't work out to do the automatic feed. So I just wanted to highlight that, because if I summarize, you said make sure you have a great background photo, because anything is better than gray, and something that connects with the buyer. Kitchen's probably better than bathrooms is a great thing to drive an emotional response or make a connection with that consumer who's looking at your profile. Then you said make sure your bio, your specializations, and areas served are done out well, not just because it helps people find you on Realtor.com, but also because it's really important to the Google juice. And then you said link up your blog, your Facebook, and your Twitter, because set it and forget it. It'll just take care of stuff for you, posting back and forth and updating your blog on Realtor.com, which will help with the Google juice for those items as well. Did I capture that right?
Absolutely, and I did forget one other item on the areas served. One other reason that you absolutely want to go in there and add any zip codes, and by the way, once you're in your dashboard in the profile, you can add up to 40 zip codes on our end. And the reason I mention that is because the one thing I forgot about is leads. There are a lot of areas where we have, where we obviously sell leads, but there are areas where we have surplus from time to time. We give those away as courtesy leads. And it's kind of a round robin. It's still one lead, one agent, so it's not being sent out to a bunch of people. But we send out these leads to agents. But the only way for us to know which agents work in that area is if you put those zip codes under your areas served. So you want to make sure you do more than just the 5. If you cover more area, make sure those zip codes are in there, because there could be free leads coming your way, and we send them out daily. So there's an opportunity for more free leads coming through if you take the time to add the zip codes.
And who doesn't want those, right?
No kidding.
So I'm pretty sure that all this stuff happens through the agent dashboard. And unfortunately, I don't think enough of our Baird Warner agents really understand how that works. So just real quick, can you give us a little taste of how the dashboard works and how they can access it?
Well, it's hard to do without visuals, but getting there is really easy. You go to Realtor.com. On the main page in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says sign in or sign up. You want to make sure that you just hover over it, though. Don't click on it, because if you click on it, it brings up a login for consumers. If you ever see a Facebook login option, you're on a consumer login. You don't want that. So you want to hover over the sign in or sign up in the upper right corner. That'll open up a drop-down, and there'll be a button there to click in for your professional section. That'll open a new tab, and you'll just go through the login process there. If you've never done it before, there's a sign-up that'll walk you through the process. If you have, then it's just going to be your email address and whatever password you've chosen. Once you're logged in, the new dashboard is really kind of nice. It's pretty simple. They've taken all the tools that used to be across the top. They run them down the left-hand column now. And then in the center, you've got tiles. And usually starts out at the top of the page with tiles on any leads that have come in, your listings. But as you scroll down, you'll see a tile with information on your profile, and there's an edit profile button right there. Or you can just go straight to managing your profile in the left-hand column. Either way, everything you see in the tiles in the middle match everything on the left. So it's, whether you're more of a visual person or you like the menus, either way they're both there. And then once you're there, it's as simple as filling in the blanks. It's pretty simple.
Great. So I don't know that we have time to show them all these things. I actually showed them where those buttons were sort of in the background while you were talking, just so that it's there for folks who are watching and for folks who check this out on the video. But like, where can they find help for figuring out how to implement these things?
Easiest way is support.realtor.com. We have an entire website there. It's accessible 24/7. We have a fantastic guide that will walk you through setting up your entire dashboard itself and how to do everything in the dashboard step by step with lots of pictures. I like pictures. Anthony is one of our trainers here, developed this guide, did a phenomenal job. It also goes through all the steps for setting up your profile, as well as taking full advantage of all your Advantage Pro stuff. And so that's out there on support.realtor.com. We also have videos. We do live webinars where we take you through the whole process as well. So those resources are all out there. They're available 24/7, and I would encourage you to go out and grab those, not only for Advantage Pro, but for anything Realtor.com. You can get there on support.realtor.com.
Great. I always like to sort of highlight that because I think it is one of your jobs as the builder of a real estate search portal to make sure that you can teach us and, quite frankly, consumers how to use it. And I think you guys do a great job. I confess to have been watching lots of your videos, so I can pick up tips to pass on in these webinars. So the other thing that we've been talking about a lot this week is making our listings stand out at Realtor.com. And our new partnership is going to allow Baird Warner to upload high-resolution photos, which is going to make them, look just a little sexier. But I'm sure there's some other things that agents can do to boost their listings. What are a few that you like to tell people to do to make their listings stand out?
Well, one of the advantages that you guys have is Advantage Pro. Advantage Pro is a great way to kind of set yourself apart. Again, with the competition that's out there, any little edge that you have is fantastic. I would encourage if you're listing agents, if you guys are not using the fact that you have Advantage Pro and some of these tools as part of your listing presentation, you should be. Because for the most part, usually in most markets, less than 10% of the agents out there have access to Advantage Pro. And so, if nothing else, that's another edge you can add to why they should list with you versus your competition. So that's a big part of it. Now, as far as the listings themselves, as you mentioned, high-resolution photos. If you haven't been out to Realtor.com lately, we've redesigned the site just within the last 60 days. And it's very photo-centric. The way the site displays, the way the individual listings display, it's all centered around those photos, and it makes a huge difference. So take a look at that. We can also add up to 100 photos now. The limit used to be 25, then it went to 36, now it's 100. So if you want to take a lot of photos, you can do that. You also have the ability to, a big part of having Advantage Pro, the two key things are your branding and leads. And so on the photos, remember, you have the ability, if you wanted to, you can, while you can't put branded information like virtual tours, or photos that have branding on them into your MLS system. And yes, everything automatically flows over from the MLS, but you do have the choice if you want to go in and replace those photos on Realtor.com with branded photos if you choose to. The same is also true for your virtual tour links. You can't put the branded version in the MLS, but you can certainly get that into your information that goes into Realtor.com. You can also expand your description. The description fields on Realtor.com are now up to 8,000 characters, where typically in the MLS, it's 500 to 800, and you have to kind of scrunch a lot of stuff down. Here you can go out and expand that. You can either add to what's coming from the MLS, or you can also replace it completely if you choose to. So all of these things allow you to kind of set yourself apart. And while, even if you get a listing now, and I hear from a lot of agents when I do my training, a lot of listing agents say, I already know that if it's a decent property and I win the listing and the house is priced right, I don't have to go in and do a whole lot of stuff. I just got to get the listing in there, and I'll have 5 contracts by the end of the week. But the thing to remember is with the Advantage Pro options, not only should you be using that to set yourself apart to get the listings, but right now in this market, it's really more about building your pipeline and less about what you're doing for that one individual, because you're right, by the weekend you'll probably have 4 or 5 offers on that property. But what you also need to keep in mind is those millions of people that are coming to Realtor.com doing the Find a Realtor search, a very large percentage of those are sellers. They're looking for agents, and they're looking at how you list properties. And again, this goes back to setting yourself apart from what your competition is doing. Show them how you do things different. Plus, if you go into a listing presentation and say, you know, one of my advantages is I have this Advantage Pro thing that other agents don't have, and then they go to your profile, because remember, all of your listing traffic and 2 years of your sold history also displays on your profile. So they can go in and see how you list compared to your competition. So you want them to see a difference. So, you know, even if you don't have time to do it when you initially put that listing in the MLS, I would encourage you to go back before it closes, because very much like the MLS, once it closes in the MLS, you can't change it. Once it closes in the MLS, you can't change it on Realtor.com either. That's part of our relationship with the MLSs. So at least go in before you close it in the MLS and do some enhancements to, again, have your properties stand out compared to what your competition is doing, because these are all ways to bring in leads and continue to keep that pipeline full. You have that advantage. A lot of your competition doesn't. The last thing is, tying back to your profiles, throughout the body of your listings, there are also several different locations in there where there are links where when they're looking at your property, they can click on your picture and link over to your profile. So another reason why you want to make sure your profile is up to date, because those sellers will also go through and look at properties and look at the way you list, and then go check out your profile to look at more information about you. So all of that stuff kind of all ties together. It's not, none of it's really independent anymore.
Right. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands, if they do change a description or if they upload branded photos, that's going to trump or override the feed from the MLS in the future. So they just have to do it once. They won't have to go back in over and over and over again to fix it, right?
Yes, absolutely. But the one thing to remember is it's only going to be the area that they change. So for example, if they only change the photos will not be overwritten, but the rest of the listing will stay up to date. So pricing changes, any other changes you make, everything else will continue to update. It's only the areas that you touch or change that will not be overwritten anymore.
Okay, thanks for making that distinction. I think that's important because you know, for each listing, this is maybe one more one more thing to add to their standard operating procedure that probably takes 15 minutes per listing to do, and allows them to, you know, really stand out compared to, as you said, 90% of the listings that are there on the market.
Absolutely, and to be honest, I wouldn't even, unless you're going to completely rewrite the description, I wouldn't even think 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops.
Gotcha.
It doesn't take a whole lot to make, you know, to have yours stand out.
Right. Okay, so I want to ask one more question about listings before we sort of start to wrap up. I'm going to plug here. Now is the time. I've gotten 1 or 2 questions that have come across, but if anybody on the webinar wants to ask Roger anything, now would be the time to get this in, because we will be wrapping up fairly soon. But I always like to ask this. Do agents need to do anything to claim their listings or their past sales on Realtor.com? And the reason I ask is because I think that, you know, we want to make sure that all of our agents get credit for the business that they are doing or have done, use that to generate those leads like you were talking about, and that kind of thing. And so from that perspective, I think that you guys have really made it easier, and you know how much we like easier here at Baird Warner. So if you could just explain the relationship you have with the MLSs and how that keeps everything up to date on Realtor.com, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, as I mentioned, it's we are direct connected with every MLS in the country. We have direct feeds from every MLS. So the big difference between us and our competition out there are those connections and those relationships. You will not find any for sale by owners on Realtor.com. Every listing that hits Realtor.com has to come through an agent, a brokerage, and an MLS. It's the only way that it gets on Realtor.com. That's how we ensure that we have the most up-to-date and correct information. That also means, because it's updated every 10 to 15 minutes, that the minute a property goes off the market and the agent makes that change in the MLS, that's live to the consumers on Realtor.com within 10 to 15 minutes. So that way, it's all automatic. Your listings, there's no claiming, because we already know that they're your listings. They're coming from the MLS with you on them. I would say for your buyer's agents, the one thing that that you might want to just keep track of as well, I mentioned before that your listing history and information also displays on your profile. For buyer's agents, that's true as well, as long as the listing agent when they closed it out in the MLS, made sure that they put you down as representing the buyer. So if you are a buyer's agent, you're not seeing those on your profile, then you might need to go back and contact the MLS on some of those previous properties and make sure that that information gets updated, because it's nothing we can do. It's all coming directly from the MLS. So we have to make sure that it's correct on their end and it flows through properly to us. But other than that, there's no claiming. You don't have to go out and grab it. There's none of that stuff. It's all right there. It's all mapped out for you automatically. If you're a brand new agent and you don't have any listings, in those guides and on the support site, there's also an area in your profile where you can turn off the map temporarily where the listings would normally show on your profile. There's a couple of check boxes you can uncheck to remove that, so it doesn't look like anything was even there. And then as you start building your history and you have closings and that starts to happen, then you can go back and turn the map back on and it'll display all your history and information there.
That's a nice handy tip. I know we've got at least one person on here who's in the Career Institute class that's just going over with. I didn't know that. That's very cool, and it does give a great opportunity there for new agents not to have to compete with some of their peers who have lots of dots.
Absolutely.
So that sort of gets me to the end of my questions. I don't know if there's anything that you didn't get to slot in that you want to make sure Baird Warner agents know. I have a couple of questions, but I think they're a little bit more directed at me about the Baird Warner program and the timing than to you. But I wanted to sort of give you a chance for a last word first.
I don't think so. I think we covered all of it. I mean, the main thing is for everyone, make sure you have your big beautiful picture. So when people get to you, they see you first. You can make sure they see you first by getting in there and boosting your ratings. For the newer agents that don't have ratings yet, because again, those are based on closings, the area that those brand new agents are going to want to focus on, get the map off their profile temporarily and tie in maybe their social media and focus on getting those recommendations from the other people in the community that they've worked with or that they're going to work with, because you can build those recommendations and get higher up on the most recommended lists. These are all very easy things that I guarantee you the majority of your competition's not doing. You can get ahead of that curve because most agents still do not realize what we've been doing for the last year and what it's doing with those profiles and the visibility between what NAR is doing, what we're doing combined. And we're going to be launching, Elizabeth Banks is currently filming a whole nother set. We've partnered with her for another year. She's got a bunch of movies coming out this year, which is great. That helps raise her visibility and in turn is going to raise ours when our new commercials start hitting next month. And I know, as I mentioned, NAR is firing out their campaign, I believe, in April. So we are doing everything we can to drive people there, to get them to you. We just want to make sure, again, when they get there, they see the best you possible. And all this stuff is really starting to tie together and work together to raise your visibility, not just on real estate. Willis, are you still there? Sounds like we might have lost you.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I just had a little technical difficulty on my side with the sound. I hope that didn't happen to everybody.
I didn't hear it on my end.
Okay, good. Then just pretend like that didn't happen. Okay, well, so I've got a couple of questions from the audience just about timing, and I wanted to address those. I'm just going to sum it up by saying that the recommendations upload, the profile upload, and the photo upload is all going to take place at the end of the month. So if you want to get any recommendations in before the end of that, or change your bio, or get a new photo uploaded to your profile, you need to do that by the end of March, by March 31st. And then all of that information is coming from your agent-branded web page. So it's all the information that's in One Touch. So it's whatever picture you see or bio you see or phone numbers that you see appearing on your agent-branded web page, like willis.man.bairdwarner.com. So as long as you get that stuff up to date, you should be all set and it'll move over. And it'll continue to automatically update your profile information every 24 hours for the rest of time, although most of us only change our bio like once a year. And then so I'll give a little more time if there's anyone else who wants to send in one last question. Well, I just remind you guys that every Monday I'm putting out a video talking about what we're doing on Realtor.com to keep things going, and then every Wednesday I'm doing a Lunch and Learn webinar to talk about that same topic about Realtor.com, and then every Friday a video interview like this. They're all being recorded. You can find all that stuff on my Workplace, formerly known as Facebook at Work account, as well as the Start menu. So I think you guys can see the topics. This week we were talking about making our listings and profiles stand out. I think Roger has been terrific. I can see from some of the comments that you guys have also enjoyed this. Next week we're going to be talking about my favorite reviews and recommendations. So don't forget to tune in to whichever of these is most appropriate. But that's all I've really got for you folks today. Roger, thank you again so much. I think you really you brought a lot of nuance to it. I spend a lot of time studying this stuff, but it is not my full-time job, and it is clear that you get to spend even more time with it than I do.
Yes,
so
I do.
Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure. It was great talking to you, and hopefully your agents will definitely get some value from it.
Yep, and I didn't see any other questions come in, so I will let everybody go back to either green beer, basketball, or hopefully helping people buy and sell properties, because that's what we do for work around here. Thanks again, everyone, for coming, and I will try and get this video up before the end of the day so that people can jump in and take a look, people who missed out. So thanks again, everybody, and special thanks to you, Roger. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Great. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, everybody.